Hey friends, welcome back to Pottery Plus. We've been doing a lot of technical videos lately, so I thought it would be fun to kind of switch it up today and do a story time. And also I'm in the studio by myself today. Daniela is spending time with her family this week during the holidays. So before I get started, I wanted to show you my cup that I'm drinking my tea out of. It is handmade. I don't know by who, but it has a stamp for the signature. I don't know if you can see it right there. It's a circle with an S inside. And I just wanted to share that quickly because for those of you who might be wanting to start a little pottery collection on a budget, I got this at the thrift store. I got a set of 6 of them for just a few dollars. And I drink everything out of them, hot, cold. Use them for when I have guests over for cocktails. They're great, and they're just a really fun, unique alternative to like normal drinkware. So I thought people might ask about that if they saw it sitting there with my tea. So anyway, to get into our story time, so let me do a little bit of setup here. So currently I am a K through 8th grade general art teacher at a school here in the city where I live. But for many, many years, up until about 2 years ago, I also worked nights at an art center, and that is where I had my adult students for pottery. And if you've been here before, you've probably heard me say, I taught all different levels, but I always loved beginners the best. So this is a story from one of my beginner classes where I had a student that wasn't so easy to manage. So I had started this beginner class, and if I remember correctly, I had this student who came in. She either missed the whole first class or she came to the first class like 2 hours late, because I don't remember which of those it was exactly, but I do know that we were like an hour or two into a project. I remember the point we were at in the project when she came in, and I was just kind of like stunned. I knew I had on my attendance sheet someone who hadn't showed up, but that would usually happen, and that person would just usually never come to the class for whatever reason. They just couldn't make it work with their schedules or whatever. It would happen that people would sign up and then just never show. So I'm kind of surprised when she comes in and we're mid-project. And so I kind of made a fatal mistake, and I feel like I did this because I was annoyed that she was so late and that I was already thinking about how I was going to try and get her caught up. So I wasn't using my best manners. But I got us started off on a bad foot because when I saw her come in the door and start looking around, I asked her if she was here for the class, and I was like all the way across the studio from her. So my voice is carrying over all of my other students that are working. And I'm starting to communicate with her and find out why she's there and who she is. So I'm like, "What's your name?" And she says it and I didn't hear it. And so I said it again, "What's your name?" And so she kind of has to yell back to me across the studio. And she had a funny name. And I think I probably got off on a bad foot with her by making her basically shout her unique name across the studio. I will not share her name because if she ever sees this, I don't want her to feel like I am holding a grudge against her or anything. I wish her nothing but the best, but I don't want to out her because her name is very unique. But her name was funny because her first and last name made up a phrase. So like when I was in middle school, we had a friend named Triana Hill. We called her Tree, but her whole name together spoken out loud said Triana Hill. So it was kind of like that. That's why it was funny. But the phrase that her name made was like, why would one's parents give them that name? And the whole group kind of, when we all heard the name, everybody kind of collectively, like, not gasped, but you could tell that everyone was reacting to this name, okay? So I'm sure she felt put on the spot. And like I said, that first few seconds, that was like my mistake. I've learned a lot from that, which is basically, don't have people shout their name across the room when they first come into a class. It's not a comfortable way for people to start. So anyway, she comes over to me, we start talking. She's not really addressing the fact that she's missed some really important information. So I kind of just started to tell her what my policy that I would use at that time was, which is this: if someone missed information, I was going to help them get caught up as best I can, but not at the expense of the rest of the group who had already been there and were already progressed past a certain level. Sorry, you guys. A little critter just ran past my window. It startled me. I think it was a cat. Anyway, so I explained that to her. She seemed okay with it. And I do recall several times over the next 8 weeks, which was the duration of the class, thinking about her and thinking she's missed a lot of information, and I know that there were going to be gaps in her learning because, I just had to keep moving with the rest of the group. I couldn't use their time that they were paying for to, just give her all of the attention. So I recall there being continued attendance issues. She never really demanded that I spend a lot of time getting her caught up. I would try the best that I could, and then I would just kind of let her do her thing. And help her as needed. But I knew that she wasn't going to get the most out of the experience, and I didn't know how that was going to play out, but I was kind of prepared for that. But she seemed fine. We made it through to the end of the class. She did attend pretty regularly till the end of the class. There was just a lot of times where she was late, really late. So yeah, the class wraps up. I'm thinking, she didn't have the best experience, but we got through it, did the best we could, and it's fine. And I think she had intended to come back. I know she did. Actually, she was going to go on to an intermediate class, was her plan. So at that time at the Art Center, at the closing of a class session, the students would fill out a survey. You can probably guess where this is going. So she fills out her survey and she's not happy. And this gets back to my administrator. And I get called into the office and I feel like I'm in trouble. I don't think I really was, but you know that feeling when someone's giving you bad feedback, you feel bad about it. So she had she had written on her survey that I did not teach her correctly. I think she said something like she still didn't understand glazes. And I think I remember that she had missed that part because she wasn't in attendance. And so, my administrator was kind of like, Kara, what's going on with this? Are you slacking off with your teaching? And I was like, no, she wasn't there. I said, look back at my attendance record, because I always took really good attendance. So if you're about to become a pottery instructor in a scenario like this, take your attendance, because then you can go back and show, if someone's complaining about you and they've missed big gaps of class, you can prove that. Anyway, I hope you're never in that situation. But anyway, so I showed her my attendance record and I just said, she doesn't know this stuff because she missed it and she wasn't there. So she was like, oh, okay, I understand. But she's still planning to come back. And, I was like, that's fine. I think she should probably take beginner level again since she did miss so much. Anyway, the whole thing between me and my boss got resolved. But, and this is the part of the story that I feel like I'm so happy that I had a confrontation that I didn't want to have with this student. So I knew that she had said these things and kind of tried to get me in trouble or say that her experience was bad because of me, and really it was bad because of her. And I knew she was going to be coming back to the studio and that I would be seeing her. So I just thought, I need to have a conversation with her kind of just about boundaries and that we were going to be in the studio together and we needed to kind of respect each other. And so I was so nervous about it because just like anybody else, I hate confrontation. Nobody likes confrontation. I think human beings avoid it at all costs typically. And so I'm like, okay, this class ended right before a holiday break, at the end of the year. So I knew that she would be in there kind of wrapping things up in the studio over that holiday break, because students were allowed to come in and pick things up, do a little glazing here and there if they still needed to at the end of their class session. So I was like, okay, next time I see her there, I'm just going to have this conversation with her. So it happens. We're both in the studio at the same time. She's kind of skulking around, not making eye contact with me, not wanting to talk to me. So she was in kind of the back of the studio area and she was back there by herself. So I was like, okay, this is a good time to talk to her because I didn't want to embarrass her. But I just asked her, I said, did you give bad feedback about your experience in my class on your survey? And she said no. And I said, well, I actually saw the survey and I don't think that the feedback you gave me was fair. And she looked at me and I could tell that she knew exactly what I was talking about. But she backtracked and she tried to kind of say, excuses why she filled out her survey that way. And I just said, can we just agree that your experience was negatively affected by your attendance issues? And she said yes. She was reasonable. She said yes. So I said, okay, listen, if you're in class with me again, or if you have a problem with me, you can tell me that. I'm not gonna I will be reasonable with you. But this was completely your scheduling issues that made you have this, kind of not best educational experience. And I just said, I work really hard here and I don't appreciate, any bad feedback towards myself that I didn't have control over. I didn't have control over your attendance. And she apologized. And I asked her, would she still feel comfortable coming back to the studio? I didn't want to create a situation where I was making someone feel uncomfortable so that they wouldn't come back. And she said, no, I'm going to come back. But she didn't. So I'm very curious where she ended up. I'm curious if she just quit or if she found another studio to work in where maybe an open studio situation or something where attendance wasn't quite as important to her having the experience that she was paying for. So I share that today because what I learned from that situation is something that I think a lot of artists and artists who are going to go into the instructional world don't want to hear and don't want to admit. But the thing is, if you are in a studio where people are paying to be there and they're doing it as a hobby, there is a customer service element to that. And I know none of us want to admit that, but it's true because they're paying you for a service. And so you have to kind of approach situations and even just how you plan your classes out, I think from that perspective. They don't have to be there. And if they're paying for time, they want to use it the way they want to use it. And if that means that they want to use it by being 2 hours late, after that situation, I always had a plan for that. I always had a plan for how to address that. And I think when I first started teaching, I had come out of higher ed, and I kind of thought that I was going to treat the classes I was teaching as my college courses, and I really quickly learned that that is not the way to approach that because people will catch on real quick and they don't want to come back to your class. So I would say my biggest lesson from all of that is accept that customer service element of the job of teaching for a private organization where people are paying for your service. Don't treat it like a college class where everybody needs to be hitting these goals, and if they're not, they're failing. I just sort of learned to encourage everyone that was there that whatever pace they were going at or whatever they were doing, just the fact that they showed up was wonderful, and whatever they accomplished or didn't accomplish wasn't really the point. It was that they were experiencing something. And I took it seriously after that to make sure that I had every part of that experience optimized for them. And, going back to the story, the way that I connected those two things together was that student could have negatively impacted the rest of the class. And I think she did because she was gossiping and, saying to other students that, oh, isn't Kara a bad teacher? I've learned nothing and all of that silly kind of stuff. But in the world of academia, you don't learn how to deal with that. So because there's students that have to sort of, in higher ed and college, your students have to, basically they have to do what you say. But in this setting, people don't. This, at a private organization where classes are offered, people are customers and they're allowed to act however they want. So, and you can't do anything about it other than, talk to them about it. So that is one of my stories that just stands out in my mind from working at the Art Center. And like I said before, I really learned a lot from it. I'm not mad at that girl. I hope that she's doing well. I hope she's still doing clay or some art form, or that she found her creative journey that she wanted to be on. But I just wanted to share that today, and because it's kind of like a behind the scenes story about being an instructor at a place like that. But also, like I said, I think even a bigger picture is tailor your instructional style to the context that you're in. So if you're teaching in college, that's going to be different than like how I do it in my K through 8 classroom. Also different from how I planned my instruction at the Art Center. So just take that into account. If you're going to be instructing, there are variations that you want to use that will help you to do better in different contexts. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed that story. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. I'm not the best storyteller in the world, but like I said, that one always stands out to me in my memory. It's kind of a crazy one. So I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. If you want to see some more from Pottery Plus, you can check out some of our other videos. Find us on Instagram at Pottery Plus Co, Facebook at Pottery Plus, or you can check out our website, which is potteryplus.squarespace.com. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.